So let's start with Deuteronomy 6. Let's do a little quiz again, a little refresher. Deuteronomy, the 5th book that Moses wrote. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy is the 5th of the books of Moses, the Torah. And Deuter, what is a duet again? 2. Duet is 2. So this is a 2 of something. Nomos is the Latin or the Greek word for law, so or teaching, right? So this is the second teachings of the law. That's kind of what Deuteronomy means. Moses has brought the people out of Exodus. God gave the teachings, the covenant teachings, right after they came out of Egypt. 3 months later, they're camping at Mount Sinai, and then God gives them the covenant, right? The first teaching. And then they start heading off to the promised land, but they're not really believing in God, so what does God do for them? For 40 years. They wander. He tests them, right? He tests them in the wilderness for 40 years. They're wandering around the wilderness for 40 years, and God is testing them. And now they're ready to go. They're ready to enter into the promised land. And Moses is not going to go himself, but he's going to prepare the people by giving them the second reading of God's teaching. And a lot of scholars think that Deuteronomy, a big chunk of Deuteronomy, is really a series of sermons. It's a sermon series by Moses to get the people ready. And if you look, let's look at the first, let's read the first 9 verses. Our text is starting at verse 10, but let's just look at the first 9 verses. And what kind of words do you hear in there that might suggest to you this is like a sermon? Okay. So verses 1 through 9. These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you, to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Hear, O Israel, and be careful to obey, that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of our fathers, promised you. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. All right. Any hints in there? What kind of verbiage do you hear and read that might suggest to you that this is maybe one of his sermons?
It's instruction.
It's instruction, a lot of instruction.
What you should do.
Yeah, what you to do. And then there's also 2 imperatives. Well, it's the same word, but it's used twice as an imperative. And it's a big part of what sermons are, at least for the receiver. Here. You see that? Twice. In verse 3, and then in verse 4. Hear, O Israel. Hear, O Israel. Listen, right? Hear and listen. And the implication is hear and then do. Hear this word and do this word. Okay? And it is very instructive.
So do we get the feeling that Moses knew God's plan? That of just having them be out there preparing for what was to come and not really getting it?
Well, verse 1, teach them to observe everything I've directed you, for you are crossing the Jordan to the land that I'm going to give you. So yeah, Moses is saying, God's going to send you into this land, and I'm preparing you for it. He's teaching them again, and a big part of the admonition, of the encouragement, the teaching, and the instruction is once you get into the land, what should you keep doing?
Still obeying and following
Still
the
obeying.
commands.
And then, and a part of that
You've
is
got
by,
your prize, but it's not over.
yeah, and part of that is by starting at verse 7, right? Instructing the families to do what? Impress them,
On your children.
talk about them,
Yeah.
teach them, tie them, write them, that these teachings are to be an integral part of your life. This is a daily walk, a weekly walk, a continual walk. Once you get to the land, keep the teachings in front of you, right? Keep the teachings in front of you. Make it part of your life.
Moses wasn't allowed to go into the promised land.
Right.
It was a whole generation. They wandered for 40 years. That whole generation that moved out of Egypt, they all passed through before they could.
Only Caleb and Joshua from that generation, those two men and their tribes, were able to enter. Because they were the two spies who trusted that God would be able to overcome all the giants of the land. Right? And the other 10 were, not, we can't do this. There's too many giants in that land. Oh.
The people of Israel, that was like a punishment, wasn't it? They did something.
God testing.
Testing and all.
Are you going to keep depending on me?
Well, and when things are going smooth and easy for you is when you tend to drift away.
Yes.
So having there be turmoil and just,
Makes you
just a
turn back.
difficult life makes you rely on God more.
So now let's get to verse 10. This is our reading, verses 10 through 15. And again, you're going to hear a lot of the same kind of language reframed that we heard in the first 9 verses. Okay. So when the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you a land with large, flourishing cities you did not build, houses filled with all kinds of good things that you did not provide, wells you did not dig, vineyards and olive groves you did not plant. Then, when you eat and are satisfied, be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Fear the Lord your God, serve him only, and take oaths in his name. Do not follow other gods, the gods of the peoples around you. For the Lord your God who is among you is a jealous God, and his anger will burn against you, and he will destroy you from the face of the land. All right.
Well, when they were in the desert, there was always the issues. They were always grumbling about something.
Yeah.
So Moses, and they probably knew, this is, got to drill this in.
You got to drill this in, right? God has provided them when they needed water, when they needed food, when their sandals did not work. It all came from God's provision. And now God is saying, I'm sending you into this new land. And it's a land flowing with what? Milk and honey, prosperity, right? A land that's good land. And whose land is it?
Canaanites.
No, it's
Lord's.
always God's land.
Oh,
Now there are other people living there, yes, but it's always God's land. And it's not theirs. It's an inheritance. And God says at the very end, if you run after other gods and worship them, what will he do to you in that land? Destroy you and take you away from the land. Yeah. He'll punish you, he'll discipline you. And that's how the book of Deuteronomy ends, with the promise of blessings and curses, right? The curses. And when we did a bigger, longer study of the scriptures, we see that happened. Did the people serve and obey only God? No,
Never.
they ran after other gods, right? And so God finally did discipline them and brought his punishment upon them and disciplined them in the form of Assyrians and then Babylonians. And they lost the land. And so all of our contention today about the biblical prophecies of Israel got to get fulfilled, that's hogwash. It's a political state. It's not a religious state. Not a religious state. Okay? It's a political state. It has nothing to do with biblical promises or fulfillments. Yeah. Because God said that's all null and void. when you run after other gods, and they did. So it's all null and void. So Moses here in these verses, reminding the people, verse 10, first of all, of the covenant that he made with Abraham, right? This is the land I'm going to bring you on, like I swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's back in which book of the Bible? Starts with the G.
Must be Genesis.
Genesis, okay, good. Starts with the G is Genesis. Yeah, so in Genesis 12, God calls Abram and says, Abram, I'm going to make you a great nation, and I'm going to give you and your descendants what? A land. And then you'll be a blessing for all the families.
This is the covenant.
That's the covenant, right? The Abrahamic covenant. Unconditional. God's going to fulfill it no matter what. And now he's fulfilling the land part. Have they become a numerous people? Yeah, they've multiplied and they've grown. And now God's going to bring them to the land. He's like he promised. He's going to give them that land. And he mentions that it's a pretty good land, right? And what did they do to deserve this land filled with houses and wells and vineyards and olive trees? Nothing. It was all gift. And so he says, when you get there and you get satisfied, what's God's first warning for them in verse 12?
That they don't forget.
Be careful you don't forget. And forget what?
Lord,
The Lord. Who did what?
who brought
Who saved you. Yeah. Who saved you
the land of slavery.
out of Egypt. Who took you out of, who delivered you from your slavery. Who brought you out. That's all the gospel, right? God says, because God knows their inclination, he knows our inclination. When life is really good, what's our tendency?
We forget about God.
We forget about God. And God knows that about us, right? And so God's Moses' first warning of this God who's going to made this great promise, fulfill the promises, still is fulfilling the promises. First thing, be careful you don't forget it. Because God knows your tendencies. He brought you out of Egypt. He's done everything. You didn't provide for anything that you're moving into. You didn't save yourself, right? God's done all of it. So be careful. And then three positive injunctions, three positive imperatives in verse 13. What are they? Fear the Lord your God. Fear Yahweh your God. What does it mean to fear Yahweh your God?
More respect.
Respect, not afraid, right? Respect, reverence, awe, faith. It's really kind of euphemism for faith, right? What's the next imperative? Serve him only. Serve him only. What does only mean?
And no other gods.
No other gods, exclusively. Serve him only. What are the other gods that you could worship? Money, time, recreation, yourself, your relationships. Nothing wrong with any of those things, is there? But they ain't the only God. They are not the only one true God that we're called to serve. Who, by the way, will use these words? Serve him only. Who will quote these words from the book of Deuteronomy? Who will quote them in the New Testament?
Moses?
No, in the New Testament.
Jesus.
Moses speaks them. Jesus will. When? What's the setting?
Last
Serve the
Supper?
Lord your God only.
Last Supper. He said, or when he was, when he appeared to the disciples after he
He's-
rose from the dead.
Nope. Good thought. He's in the same place when he quotes them that the Israelites are. In the desert. When does Jesus get?
Full of to temptation.
Yeah, when Jesus gets driven out to the desert, the wilderness, for 40 days, 40 nights. Who comes at the end of the 40 days to test him? Satan, the accuser, right? And he says, the last temptation of the three bow down and worship me, and I will give you all of these things. And Jesus responds to him, no, it is written, serve the Lord your God only. Jesus will quote this verbatim.
So he was talking to Satan.
He was talking to Satan. Serve the Lord your God, and then away from me, Satan. Away from me. Serve the Lord your God only, which is our theme for the Sunday, built by Jesus to serve. To serve him only. And why do we serve him only?
Because we're instructed.
Because we're instructed and because of what he's done for us. Right? Because he brought us out of the land of slavery with an outstretched arm. He served us, didn't he? How did Jesus serve us first? Laying down his life, dying for us, being the ransom price for us. And so we serve him only because of that. And then, what's the third imperative in verse 13?
Take your oath in his name.
Take oaths in his name.
ESV is, you shall swear, which for people nowadays, it has two meanings. I mean, you don't swear.
Taking an oath is swearing.
Right, taking an oath is swearing. Do you swear to God to tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do, yeah.
Doesn't say anything about the whole.
Yeah. Well, an oath and swearing is the same thing. Yeah. So they're in his name, right? To be faithful to God. And then we get to verse 14 again. And verse 14, now it's verse 13 is all positive things, right? Fear the Lord, serve him only, take oaths only in his name. And then we get to verse 14 and there's a prohibition. What's the prohibition?
Do not follow.
Do not follow other gods.
So it's saying the same thing, but in
A prohibition. Yeah, it is. And those other gods are the gods of the peoples around you. They were, in Moses' days, they were actual little idols, right, that they made and representing their gods. But their gods were gods of sexuality, gods of wealth, gods of violence, gods of revenge. Same gods that we have today. We just don't attach little idols to them. They're the same gods. And then, the last verse, why are we to do all these things? Well, there's a promise and then there's a warning. What's the statement of promise in verse 15?
That the Lord he's always among us?
Yeah, he's always among us, and he's our God. Right? Yahweh, your God, is always among you. That's the promise. That's the statement. He's your God, and you're his people. That's a great promise to say God's mine, and I'm his. And then the warning. That God, though, is a jealous God. Now, we usually think about the term jealousy positively or negatively. Yeah, usually it's a negative way of describing somebody. Jealous, right? Okay. Is it negative or positive when it's ascribed to God?
I don't think so. I think it's because he wants us to only praise him.
Yeah, so it's positive.
Yeah.
It is a positive. You're right. It is when it's ascribed to God, it's positive. Because God knows that if we wander away from him, what happens to us? We fall away and it goes pretty bad for us, right? The false gods that we might follow, they'll always fail us, always. False gods will always fail you. They cannot save you. They may work for a while, but in the end, they'll always fail you. And God's jealous that way in that he doesn't want us to wander away and be failed, because he knows that means ultimately condemnation, separation from him. And so he is a jealous God. And his warning then is, hey, if you do this, you will lose the land. You'll be destroyed from the face of the land. Right. All right. That's all I got in Deuteronomy 6. There's a lot there, though, ain't it?
A lot.
Yeah. Serve him only.
They found it interesting, in fact, when you look at verse 8,
Mm-hmm.
there's a sect of Jewish that they wear this little thing on their head.
Yeah, they do. Orthodox Jews will, they're called phylacteries. They will tie little boxes to their foreheads and on their wrists that have the words of Deuteronomy 6 inscribed on them. Because well, Jesus would have woke up and done this as well. Every Jewish person who worships Yahweh, their morning prayer starts with Deuteronomy 6:4. It's called the Great Shema. Shema is the Hebrew word for listen or hear. Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind. Or mind's not in there, I guess. That's the Great Shema. And when Jesus is asked, hey, what's the greatest commandment? What does Jesus quote?
Love one another.
No.
Love God.
He quotes Deuteronomy 6, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And then he quotes, you said it before, love your
neighbor as yourself.
Yeah. So when Jesus asks, what's the greatest commandment? He says, well, there's two. Well, he combines them together, if you will. Love your neighbor as yourself actually comes from Leviticus chapter 19. So Jesus knows in the realm of all of Moses' teachings, how many commands are there? From the books of Moses, there are 613. Yeah, there's 613 in the books of Moses. It's you shalls and you shall nots. 613 commands. So Jesus had 613 to choose from. What's the greatest? He said, well, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Deuteronomy 6:5. Love your neighbor as yourself. Leviticus 19. It says they're dual. They're together. Link them together always. Ooh, bee. Ooh, hornet. Even worse.
Are you sure? Don't touch him. He'll bite you.
Don't go away. Hornet. Boom. Entertainment for everybody watching.
Yeah. He must like your aftershave.
It does, I guess. I don't know.
There
They
he's
like
on the
yellow.
screen.
They like yellow and red.
They like yellow. Okay, we're gonna get that bugger.
Yay.
You're dead now, sucker. All right, I saved us all. Okay, that was our entertainment. Let's go to Second Corinthians. All right, 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Now I gotta get my other sheet here. I killed the bug with my note sheet. All right. 2 Corinthians 5. So, actually, I was watching something. I just saw a little clip of it. A guy who was doing some commentary stuff on Corinthians to a class. I saw him on Facebook, a friend of mine, and New Testament scholar, and he was talking about the Corinthian city. It's a pretty big city, anywhere between 50 to 100,000 people in the days of Paul. It's a Greek city, right? Yep, it's a Greek, and it's a sailor city, so it's a port. Anywhere between 50 to 100, it's kind of hard, kind of depending upon how much of the surrounding suburb area he's taken. He kind of guessed it. He said, I think it was probably around 80,000. And he goes, out of that 80,000, he said the church of Corinth was probably about 60 people.
Not many.
Not many. A small group. Right? But they were very mission-minded.
And these were in the days that the disciples were traveling.
Paul was the only one at
Paul
this
was
point.
there.
Well, he's the one that founded the church. Yeah. So Paul founds it on his second missionary journey. When he goes into the Greek, goes to Macedonia first, and then he makes his way across Greece. He hits the big cities too. That's where he goes. And so there are Jewish people at a synagogue, and he preaches and teaches to many of them, and some convert, and then there's some Gentiles in this church as well. But it's a small group. I just found that very interesting. So his first letter that he writes to them, 1 Corinthians obviously, is 16 chapters. And there's a common phrase that he uses throughout it, and the common phrase in 1 Corinthians that he uses throughout it is, do not be ignorant. Ignorant not as in stupid. It's not meaning stupid. Ignorant means you're uninformed.
Don't
Right.
know about this.
Don't know about it. It's not that you're stupid. Don't be uninformed. Right? And some translations put it that way instead now too. And I kind of like that. Do not be uninformed about these things. Do not be uninformed about spiritual gifts. Do not be uninformed about the resurrection. Do not be uninformed about so many different things. And so it's a very correcting letter. He's found out there's a lot of goofy stuff going on in this congregation. There's sexual immorality still. There's divisions. There's boasting and pride. They don't even, some of them don't even believe in the resurrection of the body, right? And so that's the whole chapter 15. And very, very, like I said, very kind of, you can imagine sitting there and it's being read to you and you're kind of like going, oh my gosh, we really have been screwing up. And the good thing is, he was a little worried about the letter because when you write a letter like that, you're not sure how people are going to react to it, especially since he knows a lot of them didn't really care for him very much, right? But they received it, right? And they made their corrections. They took it and they received a lot of his admonitions, a lot of his critique, and they received it and they began to correct themselves. And there's a strong theory that there's actually 4 letters that Paul wrote to Corinth, but only 2 of them are part of the scripture. Yeah. As 2 Corinthians then is a more conciliatory letter. Right? It's a more, hey, you good job in taking my corrections and reapplying yourself and understanding it better and all of that. And so that's kind of where this second letter is now. In chapter 5, our verses are going to be verses 11 through 15. Okay? We're going to start by we're going to read verses 11 through 15, and then we might backtrack and take a little before that. Since then, we know what it is to fear the Lord. We try to persuade men. What we are is plain to God, and I hope it's also plain to your conscience. We are not trying to commend ourselves to you again, but are giving you every opportunity to take pride in us, so that you can answer those who take pride in what is seen rather than what is in the heart. If we are out of our mind, it is for the sake of Christ. If we are in our right mind, it is for you. For Christ's love compels us, because we are convinced that one died for all, and therefore all died. And he died for all, so that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him, who died for them and was raised again. How does ESV put verse 15? You want to read that?
Yeah. And he died for all.
Okay.
That those who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him.
Okay. So very similar. Okay, good. I thought it was, but I wanted to make sure. All right, so we'll start with y'all. Any thoughts or questions going on here in Paul's verses 11 through 15?
Well, my chapter 11 starts with therefore.
Okay.
Instead of since.
Oh, I have since then. So it's pretty similar.
Therefore, pretty much tells us that we should go back and read the.
Oh, there you go.
The preceding.
Yeah.
The therefore means that,
Yeah.
let's go went ahead of that. So what you got there, Ms. Peggy? You just looking for a reference?
Yeah, I was looking for where Corinth, there I see it, Corinth was.
Yeah.
So I see it on my map.
So it's a major city in the ancient world, and it's a coastal city.
Yeah.
It was, and here's the, in the days of Paul, because it was a city where a lot of ships came in and trade and commerce and people from all different places. It was a very promiscuous place. They would say what happened in Corinth stayed in Corinth.
Well, it's very near to Athens.
Yeah.
And Athens really had
A lot of
people-
idols. And
Well, yeah,
not
had
them,
people
then.
who really
They were the
thought
philosophers.
differently.
Yes.
So I guess I can see more why it was hard to convert people.
Yeah, it was a little rougher
Why it
place.
was only 60
Yeah.
in this group.
And yet Paul is convinced that they are going to
Because
do
it's
big
really that
things.
part of the world.
God is going to do big things, which is
Yeah.
This is where Paul started the church. He started with, they had something that said to the unknown God.
that was Athens.
That's that.
When he's in Athens, he is marveling at all their idols, and then in the Agrippicus says, I even noticed you got one for an unknown God. Well, let me tell you about that one.
That one.
And
yeah.
that is the God who made everything. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. So Corinth is a rough place, rough town, promiscuous. If you were a promiscuous person sexually in Paul's day, they would say you were a Corinthianizer.
Mm.
That's
It was that much
Yes.
labeled that way.
Yes. All right. So you already noted verse 11 starts with since then or therefore. So let's read about what happens in the first 10 verses.
Well, you even go back one paragraph here, and that one starts with therefore.
Verse
So,
6.
yeah.
yeah.
So we're going to go to chapter 5 verse 1.
Okay.
Now then, we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. What's that referencing?
Heaven.
Okay, and what? What's the earthly tent?
Our body.
Yeah, our bodies. Yeah. Meanwhile, we groan. We groan longing to be clothed with our heavenly dwelling, because when we are clothed, we will not be found naked. For while we are in this tent, we groan and are burdened, because we do not wish to be unclothed, but to be clothed with our heavenly dwelling, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. Now it is God who made us for this very purpose and has given us the Spirit as a deposit guaranteeing what is to come. So he's saying we've got our existence now, right? And it's an earthly existence, but it's not forever. It's temporary because God's got something even more in store for us, a dwelling forever, a new body, right? He talked about that back in 1 Corinthians 15, the resurrection of the body. Therefore, right, we are always confident and know that as long as we are at home in the body, we're away from the Lord. So we live by faith, not by sight. That's what he dealt with in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter. There's faith, there's hope, there's love, and the greatest of them is love because it's eternal, right? But until then, we have to live by faith and hope. But once we have it by sight, we don't have to have faith or hope anymore. So we are confident, I say, and would prefer to be away from the body and at home with the Lord. So we make it our goal to please Him, whether we are at home in the body or away from it. In other words, we live to serve Him only. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive what is due him for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad. So that, therefore, now we know what it is to fear the Lord, to try to persuade men. And so now he's kind of bringing them to so we've got a mission here. And we're not going to read that fullness of it, but that kind of starts at verse 17 and then goes through the end of the chapter. The mission is the ministry of reconciliation. That we're called to teach people that men does not count their sins against them. But that's kind of where verses 15 through, or 11 through 15, that is our reading for this week, is taking us. It's kind of building the momentum. So we live by faith now, because we can't live by sight, because if we live by sight, we don't understand the promises. We got to trust that God's going to already done what He's done for us, that we have an eternal home prepared for us, and that we're going to go there. Paul longs to go there, but he knows he still has what? Work to do here. Work to do here for the sake of other people. Which gets us to then verse 14 and 15. Let's look at those again. For Christ's love compels us. What does the ESV have for that verse?
It's when the love of Christ controls us.
Controls us. Yeah. Compels us. What does it mean to be compelled or controlled?
Gives us that direction.
Yeah, it pushes us that way, right? It moves us that way. It gives us that direction. It compels us. The love of Christ is what? He doesn't count our sins against us. So that's compelling us. It's pushing us. It's directing us. Why? Because we are convinced that one died for all, therefore all died. Who's the one who died for all?
Jesus.
And therefore all died. What does that mean?
Everything is gone.
He said one died for all.
Yeah, it says that one died for all, that being Jesus, therefore all died. That means all who believe in Jesus have also died. What's died? Our sinful nature, our selfish nature. Yeah. The nature that only wants for me. And verse 15, then he died for all, that those who live shall no longer live for themselves. Because if you live for yourself, you're really dead.
You're dead.
But if you died in him, who didn't live for himself, you're living for who?
Christ.
For Christ and for others.
For us, yeah.
Yeah, for others. Which means you're going to do what for them?
You're going to serve others.
You're going to serve others. You're going to live for no longer yourself, but for him who died and was raised again. And the way that you serve Jesus, you serve the Lord, is by serving the people that are around you, your neighbor. That's it.
Yeah.
So we are being built by Jesus to serve others. We serve Jesus, we serve the Lord, whom we cannot see, by serving others. Because here's the reality. Does God really need our good works?
He doesn't need us at all.
He doesn't need us at all. Who needs our good works? Who needs our service? Others. Yeah. They need it. And that's who we're called to do. Why? Because the love of Christ compels us. It controls us. It directs us. Because we believe in the one who didn't serve himself, but came to serve us. And how did he serve us?
By
He
that.
died for
By
us.
dying for us and being raised again for us. So that's the focus, being built by Jesus to serve. That's why we're going to have a bucket survey for 3 Sundays in a row.
Does that start this week?
It does. Yeah. For people to start thinking, praying, wondering, testing the waters. What's another way that I could be of service to others? It's not only confined to church, though, right? You realize that, right? That we're not only serving God only when we're doing on a church committee or when we're on a board or any function. It's everywhere. What are the 4 stations in our life that God calls us to be of service to others? Starts at the most basic place.
In your neighborhood. I
Well,
guess.
even more basic than that.
Your home.
Your home, your family. That's your first station of life where you're called to serve others. Yeah. And there's another one.
Work.
Work. Yep. And then there's another one. Community. Community,
Yeah.
government,
At
neighborhood.
Walmart.
Yeah. And then the final one? Church. Yeah. Those are the 4 stations that Luther, at least, saw
Okay.
throughout the scriptures. That God calls us to live out our lives of service for the sake of others. Starts in your home. Now, for Luther, home and work in his days were pretty much intertwined, right? Because it was mainly an agricultural kind of a lifestyle.
Work from home.
Yeah.
Back then.
It was. It was. You work from home because that's where you farmed, right? And for Fremont, that was prevalent as well. Not so much anymore, right? It's changed a lot. So it's work, home, work, community, neighborhood, government, however you want to phrase it, and then church. And that's where we're compelled by the love of Christ to no longer live for ourselves only, but to serve Him by serving those who are around us. All right. Anybody else got any thoughts or questions about 2 Corinthians before we take a meander at the gospel from Mark chapter 1? Now that we have no more hornets buzzing me. Yeah, let's look at it. Mark chapter 1. A day in the life of Jesus. That's what this little gospel reading is. A day in the life of Jesus. So verse 29, which actually starts at, this day of Jesus' life actually starts in verse 21. It's synagogue, and it's the Sabbath day, and Jesus is there.
Mhm.
So we know what day is this, if it's a Sabbath. What day is it? Saturday, yeah. So, verse 29. As soon as they left the synagogue, so Jesus is done teaching in the synagogue, Sabbath, that part of Sabbath is over, they went with James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told Jesus about her. So he went to her, took her hand, and helped her up, and the fever left her, and she began to wait on them. That evening, after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everybody's looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let's go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so that I can preach there also, for that is why I've come." And they traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. So what do you notice about this day in the life of Jesus?
Well, I suppose this is where we know that Simon Peter
Okay.
was married because
Yep.
it was his mother.
Got a mother-in-law. We know he's married. Simon's house in Capernaum, right? Which becomes, by the way, if you travel to the Holy Land and go to Capernaum, it's a fishing village on the northwest side of the Sea of Galilee. There is a church built at the home of Simon Peter. And most historians and archaeologists feel that it's pretty authentic. It wasn't made up. That it really is the location of Simon Peter's home. Because of the antiquity of the building and the tradition behind it is so long lasting that it probably really is. That would be pretty cool. What else you got? Any other thoughts or questions about this day in the life of Jesus?
Well, he spent his time serving.
And he didn't do anything for himself that day.
Okay, he did. Yeah. And the one person, where does this start off? John mentions Simon's mother-in-law. So what's her problem? What's going on with her?
She's ill.
She's ill. She's sick, right? And Jesus does what?
Takes your hand.
Takes her hand, which, of course, if she's sick and touches her, does he get sick or does he become unclean?
Well, that would have been their thought,
Right.
normally.
Yeah. And he doesn't. Rather, what happens to her?
She jumps out of bed and starts waiting on him.
Exactly, right? Isn't that the greatest
Like
picture?
any good mother-in-law.
Exactly. She's the mom. She's in charge of this household.
Yeah.
That's her responsibility. And so what's she going to do? Touched by Jesus and healed, now she's ready to serve. Sound like anything?
Now, did she thank him?
By serving.
By serving.
Yeah. By doing what she was called to do.
Yeah.
Touched by Jesus, healed by Jesus, now you're ready to serve. Guess how we're when we do our contemporary services, I do a different benediction. You kind of noticed that maybe. And then the last phrase I always say is, "Go in peace,
Serve
serve the Lord." And then you respond, "Thanks be to God." Go in peace. You've been healed. So what are you called to do now?
To serve the Lord.
And how do you serve the Lord?
Helping your neighbor.
Helping your neighbor, which is exactly what Mrs. Peter's mother-in-law did. Touched by Jesus, she's healed. She's given peace and pardon, and she gets up to do what? To serve the Lord by serving those in her responsibility realm. By making food for Peter, for Andrew, his brother, for James and John, the other fishermen, for Jesus, for everybody in that household. Then the next scene is evenings. Well, now that it's evening, after sunset, it means what's ended now? Sabbath is ended. And now all the people come in droves to Jesus. And does Jesus hold back? He doesn't hold back. He heals as many who come with their various diseases, driving out demons, right? And then, very early in the morning, what does Jesus do?
Leaves.
No, before he leaves.
Pray.
He's out praying, right? This is his daily rhythm. He worships on Sabbath. He teaches on Sabbath. Then Sabbath is over. Now he's back to serving. He begins his morning in prayer. Probably prayed, "Hear, O Lord, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind." And when they finally find him in this solitary place praying, what do the disciples, what are they basically asking Jesus? "Hey, everybody's looking around for you."
Yeah,
What are they basically saying? What are they trying to communicate to Jesus?
they're trying to get him out of there and have him not be bombarded by people.
I think that they want him to be bombarded.
Oh.
I see
thought
it
they
as
were
the opposite.
protecting him.
Yeah, could be. I think it's like, "Hey, let's build on this. You're getting pretty popular here." Right? I think because Jesus replies to them, well, let's go somewhere else. I think because of his reply is I think I hear Jesus replying to them, hearing them kind of say, "Hey, everybody's looking for you." Like, they're like saying, "Hey, Jesus, let's take advantage of this, right? You've got a little bit of a movement going on here in our village. Let's make you the guy here." And Jesus is saying, "Yeah, I didn't come here to be the guy just here, but let's keep going to other places so that I can preach there also, because that's why I've come." Jesus has come to announce the coming of the kingdom and to enact it and to bring it into existence. And he knows his mission. And who's going to stop him? Ain't nobody going to stop him. And not even death will ultimately stop him. Not even death will stop him. And so they leave that place and they go throughout all of Galilee, preaching in synagogues and driving out demons.
He rebukes the demons not to speak.
Does? Why?
I don't know, back in verse 24, he
Yep.
takes a demon out and the demon speaks.
And the demon says what about Jesus?
I know who you are, the Holy One of God.
The only ones who know who he is in these first 8 chapters of Mark are the demons. They know. Yeah. And Jesus hushes them. I think he doesn't want the confession of who he is to come from demons. He wants people to get it through his Father, through the Spirit, not through the confession and the witness of demons.
So he had real power over Satan then.
It totally does.
Totally.
Always does. Yeah. Satan's ultimately only his servant. Satan can do nothing that God does not allow. And so often God takes what Satan does and twists it and makes it actually something turn into good. Which is what God can do.
Really.
Yeah, that's what God does. Yeah. Satan will never learn that, but that's what God can do. We heard that with the story of Joseph, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they intended it for evil, right?
Okay.
And God turned it into good. And that's great that the demons He rebukes them because they know who he is. But when Jesus asked the disciples, in the whole first chapters of Mark, they're always going, who is this guy? Who is Jesus? Right? People are amazed. Crowds are flabbergasted. Disciples are bewildered. But none of them really know who he is until we've done the study on Mark's gospel, right? The very middle of the book. Jesus asked, who do you say that I am? And what does Peter respond?
You are the Christ.
You are the Christ. That's the hinge verse. And from that moment on, Jesus begins to teach them what kind of Christ he's come to be. And he's saying, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, be betrayed, died, and on the third day rise again. That's how I'm going to be the Christ. And Peter hears that and says, no, never. You got the things of men in mind, Peter, not the things of God. Get behind me, Satan. Oh, get behind me, Satan. That's what he calls his best friend. He rebukes them, just like he's rebuking the demons here. So, interesting. Mother-in-law does what does she do as soon as she's healed and pardoned and peaced?
Jumps up to serve them.
So we are being built by Jesus to
Serve.
Yeah, now you know the sermon.
Well, I knew Sundays. I knew when I was watching, like,
Yeah,
well, yeah, that's what we
we talked about that.
Talked about.
Yeah. To forgive. Hopefully a little differently, but yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah.
I mean, you didn't.
You knew where I was going, though.
I knew.
Absolutely. All right. Anybody got any other thoughts about this day in the life of Jesus here from Mark chapter 1? Any questions? Anything you observed or wonder about?
Well, when they say everyone's looking for you, it was like Mary when he was at the temple.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you know that
Yeah, could be.
we'll be looking for you?
Sure.
What are you doing here?
Yeah. In other words, hey, what? Get off your knees and stop praying, Jesus.
Everybody's looking for me.
We got some popularity stuff to do here. You're getting famous. Yeah, Jesus says, let's move on. Let's go to other places. That's why I've come.
Thank God he did.
Yeah. So I kind of always vision Jesus. It's kind of like a political campaign, right? When somebody's running for governor, what we're going to have that happen in starting in a couple months here probably. What will those candidates do? They're going to go to villages, get out there, go to villages, town halls, whatever forums they can get to, and their stump speeches, right?
Invisible.
Yeah, and just start talking about their plan of action and their stump speeches. That's kind of what Jesus is doing in these early years of his ministry. He's moving around, going to villages, synagogues, and giving his stump speeches, his teachings, right? And whatever the occasion is, that's what he's bringing out. Now, Mark tells us very little of what he actually taught. That's Matthew and Luke will tell you more about that. But Mark has very little of Jesus' teachings. There's one chapter, chapter 8, chapter 7 a little bit as well. That's about it. But he's out there, and Mark's got him more doing the miracles. Mark's got a lot of more miracle action stuff that Jesus is doing on his march towards Jerusalem.
It seems like Jesus was there's all these people with demons. Is that Satan just trying to be
He's more active about
apple
it.
cart there with Jesus, or trying to tempt him?
I think it's just the nature of Satan, the demon state. We've maybe labeled some of it differently in our culture, but there is demon possession in our culture. It's more prevalent in third world countries than our culture, because truthfully, Satan doesn't have to work as hard to possess people today to get them to only live for themselves, does he? In our culture, in the Western culture. Just go look at Sunday mornings at stadiums and parking lots around stadiums and the Champions Center in Grand Chute and the fields. People are not worshiping God anymore, aren't they? They're worshiping the cult of sport. So does Satan have to work all that hard? Not really. Not really. In third world countries, where Jesus' culture was a third world culture, right? He's got to work a little harder, and so the possession was more prevalent. But there's still demon possession today and oppression in our culture. The whole movie, The Exorcist, is built upon that, of a possession of a person. All right. I got nothing else on preschool. My preschoolers ready. Singing some songs.
Here.
Nope, they 11:40.
Oh.
I got a few minutes to go to get the stuff fired up for it. Hopefully Matt put it all back together right. I saw him doing it. I figured he would. We'll have a new sheet next week. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We'll have a new sheet, and it'll be our last Sunday in our sermon series, Built by Jesus. It'll be Built by Jesus for Generosity. And then the following week is Reformation Sunday. And then it'll be All Saints Sunday. And then we got 3 weeks after that. So starting in November, we're going to do a little sermon series about the end times. Kind of a focus of what happens on that day that Jesus appears. Be a day of happy family reunions. A day of justice, ultimate justice. That'll be we'll take a deep dive into looking what does Jesus teach us about hell, and why does he teach us about it? And then, so yeah, it'll be hell and brimstone that day. But also good news. Then what's the week after that? Oh, until that day, don't tire of doing good. And then the final one of that will be a day of fulfillment of Christ the King, a day of fulfillment. And then we start Advent. Yeah, Advent's coming. I think there's 5 Sundays in November. I think that's what that's. Because our first Sunday in Advent is the last Sunday in November. Yeah, and we're in Advent we're going to do a little sermon series. Start a sermon series on Matthew, on the genealogy of Jesus, asking the question, who is Jesus? So we'll do four weeks of who is Jesus from his genealogy in Matthew 1 through 17.
So I have a question,
Yes, ma'am.
and maybe we've been told, the promised land encompasses what area? That we know today, the promised land, how much of it?
The promised land of the Bible is
the Bible.
The new heavens and the new earth.
Oh, so that's what he's leading them to.
That's what, well, in Moses is leading them to a chunk of land.
That's what
So it went from the river Euphrates down to basically the promised land would have been in Jesus' day. David and Solomon expanded it the furthest, and it went from today tips of Syria in the north down to the Sinai Peninsula in the south.
Do you have that on there, Vicki?
All these
Oh, wait,
tribes have their own
here's-
section.
Yep.
Syria
This is
to the
now.
Sinai. Oh, this is no. So, but here, all of this land.
Right.
All of this. Where Jordan is
No,
and
not
Saudi
Jordan.
Arabia?
No.
that-
No,
No,
this inner.
so the
It's all
inside,
coast, like,
Wherever it's got colors.
this, just here.
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Okay, from here.
Yep.
And that's what, is that politically what's going on now? They want that all?
In the 1940s, when
1947,
when they
Talked about taking
when they came back
more.
into the drive.
yeah.
There was the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Which
never,
is
the Gaza
right here.
Strip was never part of Israel. David never conquered the Gaza Strip.
Well, so why did they just let Palestine?
Well, what happened is when they came, all the people who were living in the 1940s in
Yes.
the area of Palestine,
Yes,
they got driven out. And they basically, the Jewish revolution that happened then, basically violently drove them out of their homeland. And they forced millions of people to live in the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip was a miserable place to live, where it was basically a forced concentration camp for the past 70 years. It's not been good. Yeah, neither side's been good in this whole stuff.
No.
yeah, it's all political.
It is. So,
It's awful.
Miss Linda, I think I screwed it up again. I made it small. You want to close this down? I got to go set up my kids for jump. We'll pray. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, today we come to you in praise and thanks for being the God who served us in love in Jesus to make us your very own. We praise and thank you that we can be of service to you.